Hey, we've talked a lot about transfers, who's going to be an instant impact for new faces, but let's talk about old faces today. Guys that have already been with the program coming back for another season at Michigan State. We do it all with the icon, Al Karsten. That's right. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 3 days a week in June and July. But hey, once August comes, which might as well be 5 minutes from now with how fast this summer's going, we are back to 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below on YouTube your favorite returning player to the team this fall, because that's what we're going to talk about here with the one, the only Al Karsten. This guy is all things football personified, fan favorite amongst the Locked On listeners, and for great reason. Now that I've buttered your biscuit here, Al, how we doing? We doing okay?
Matchy hands across America. Happy to link up and join forces. We've got a fun topic, a fun few topics, but I think just there are some guys that need more recognition. We've been talking about amidst the coaching turnover and the transfer portal vortex. So no breaks in the chain for the hype for the Spartans fans.
You got that right. We've spent so much time, me and you, Al, we've done a discussion on this. Like, hey, who's going to be some instant impact transfers? Who are we most fired up about? It seems like we've only talked about transfers or recruits in the last few months. But holy crap, contrary to popular belief, there are still some guys on this team that have been here for 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 years. So let's give them some run here. Let's give them some shine. And Al, I'm just going to waltz it out first, man, because I think that the biggest returner from last year's team is none other than back there in the secondary. That's right. Place him a nice little bit of box safety, really good in the tackling game. Obviously, you see him in the pass coverage being in the secondary. Played in all 12 games last year. My God, how many Spartans can say they've done that? Whether it was, for bowing out of the season, kind of understandably so, or just for being injured like every single player Michigan State was last year, but he's durable. He had 6 pass breakups last year and 72 tackles last season. Both of those are second best on the team. That is the one, the only Malik Spencer. Al, fact or fiction, Malik Spencer is the top returner to next year's team. Take it away.
All right. On your list, he sure is, but and I think he's generated top 100 buzz among draft prospects.
Yes.
I've seen a few things now because he was able to be so versatile amidst the chaos of the defense last year. I'm watching the Minnesota game last week, and I'm seeing them continue with the jet motion, and he's having to carry guys at the snap, and he's doing everything. He's playing a little bit of back safety, but a lot in the box and also as a nickel. And it's wildly impressive the things he was tasked to do still so early on in his career. I can't believe we're going to have a confident coordinator to build his strengths and execute, deploy him well. So I'm excited for Malik Spencer.
Yeah, and it's just all about the versatility, which is something obviously this staff really appreciates. I'm sure all staffs across the country appreciate some sort of versatility, but you could see it in the transfer portal. Guys like Nikai Martinez out of University of Central Florida, who could probably play you all 11 positions on defense, right? Legend Cavazos, that's another guy that has bebopped around from cornerback to safety. I mean, this is another pawn, but already in the program here, already on the roster in Malik Spencer. Just like you said, I mean, this is just one guy's opinion. Jordan Schultz, he does work for Bleacher Report. He had that random tweet in the offseason about how Malik Spencer could be getting like first round eyeballs when the next draft rolls around. So I don't know if Jordan Schultz is good friends with Malik Spencer's agent or anything. I for one, am obviously very high on Malik Spencer. I think he's the top returner of last year's team, but nevertheless, I like the way you phrase it, like top 100 buzz. That still means he is a damn fine player. So outside of the Malik Spencers of the world, I got 2 more guys written down in front of me. But Al, who is your top returner from last year's team?
Yes, my number one darling. Now, he wasn't a recruiting darling. He was a little bit overshadowed by Job and Andrew DePape, and it's Jalen Thompson. Yeah. I mean, some recruiting analysts made it seem like he was not a take when we were fat and Ferrari, Lamborghini happy, right, and that perhaps he would need to kick inside, move to the interior. Spoiler alert, it's actually quite the opposite. But, I mean, even going back to last year, he wasn't allowed to enroll early like Job and DePape because of a very sensical NCAA rule where we had
Sure.
Thomas Wiltshire previously on staff, the former high school coach for him. And what did he do? He moved to mid-Michigan. He took classes at LCC. He hired a personal trainer to work with until the summer when he could join. And eventually he carved a role. He wasn't there in September, but he was too damn good not to play. I mean, there were some injuries and everything, but eventually in 8 games, 4 starts, he had 19 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, forced fumble, 2 pass deflections. And I remember watching towards the second half of the U of M game. It was the Leo DiCaprio Hollywood meme of 55. And
Right.
started to see it through like the Minnesota, Nebraska, IU games. He was averaging 40 snaps a game, and he generated 8 pressures, 8 quarterback pressures, 8 run stops. So he's flashing. He's making a difference. And we didn't have enough guys that were neutralizing and stopping the offense the last few years. And his 74.7 PFF grade overall defensively was first among all freshman defensive linemen in the Big Ten last year, and it was 4th in all of Power 5. His run defense grade of 72.6. Now that was first in the Big Ten and 7th in the Power 5. And it starts with his arm length. He's got incredible arm length that he uses well. He's got great physicality and effort. So he did a good job of extending his arms, keeping guys off him, maintaining his balance. He's beating tight ends as a freshman, which is a rite of passage because they kept thinking, we don't have to waste a tackle. We don't have to chip. We have to use him. So he was beating tight ends in the run game and pass game, and he was chasing down plays backside, back to that effort there. And it's the little things he does well. I think maybe he'll improve working on his hand usage, his pass rush plan, and defeating double teams. When he was run at the point of attack, he could be susceptible. But again, the guy had been on East Lansing's campus for an extra lap, 1 semester. So, and I thought it was pretty cool that this spring, our new defensive line coach, Lengi Suianoa, he had some quotes that stood out to me about him. Yes. I mean, he couldn't stop gushing about him. He said everything he does is elite as a person. He called him an old soul. He called him mature. Yeah. And he said the whole staff was super fired up to have him moving forward. My favorite was that he was going to fly around this place for a long time. Like, for a long time, is he going to be Spartan lore? Is he going to be one of those numbers? Is he going to be an all Big Ten, 2-time, 3-time all Big Ten guy that we talk about and we hold up high? So I was just really excited about that. And I know Lengi is the overall defensive line coach, but Jalen Thompson is making the move to rush end, which is a big position in Joe Rossi's defense. That is a chess piece. That is, and that's coached entirely by Chad Wilt, who is a former Big Ten defense coordinator, and he'll be converting to a 2-point stance. But I'm excited to see him there. I bet he still is only dropping the coverage 10% of the time in some of our simulated pressures and blitzes, but it'll mostly be zone drops. I'm excited to see him in year 2 build off of what he has. I mean, by all accounts, he has great awareness. He is the right mental mindset, and he's switching to the number 9, which just for him, I feel like that's an elite number. He's going to be a playmaker, and along with Malik Spencer. How did we forget? I mean, we have some good building blocks that really could have gone anywhere. Sure. And we brought in an offensive head coach, so we need some defensive guys, and those two, I'm fired up for them.
And Jalen Thompson is my number 2 guy too. And I like what you said about, how he's going to be flying around here for a while. He could be, one of those names that we remember. Could he be what Greg Jones was to those early Mark Antonio defenses? That cornerstone guy, the guy you could always count on. I mean, it'd be a lot to build it up to like an All-American level like Greg Jones was over here. But symbolically, could he be that foundational guy that helps usher in this new era of defense? Like, very well could. And just, for one other thing that is maybe a little nonsensical, not statistical at all, Al, but like last year as a freshman, this is such a lazy take, but I think there's some truth to it. Like, he just looked like he belonged on the field. And there's sometimes you see the freshman go out there, the true freshman, it's like, oh, Lordy, he could use 20 pounds easily, or, oh my, the game looks about a step or two too fast to him. So it wasn't a perfect year last year, but in those last 4 games of which he started, like, hey, that's a guy that looks like he belongs in Power 4 football. Again, like it sounds lazy, but that's a good start to where he is as a freshman. We got a few more names that we got to get to, Al, but I hate to do this, especially to a guest that everyone just loves, But I got to talk people's ears off about Game Time because speaking of love, guys, I love the Game Time app because they save you money and just make life so simple. When it comes to saving money, let's say you know you're going to go to a game, a concert, theatrical performance, or anything with a ticket a few weeks ahead of time. Hop on Game Time and find the flash deals right now. Great seats. You're going to find better rates there than you will anywhere else. Or, hey, let's say you're a procrastinator or you just woke up one morning and you're like, you know what? I do want to go see the Tigers today. Why not? Roll out of bed, check out their last minute deals up until first pitch or even a little after first pitch too on Game Time. They make it super simple and you're not going to get popped with fees at the very end. It's not one of those sites where it's $11 per ticket. And then after 17 clicks, it's like, oh my God, why are these tickets $89 all of a sudden? No. It is simple with Game Time, super straightforward, and they like to save you money right off the bat. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. As we drag back the one, the only Al Karsten, football guy _Al on Twitter, by the way. Every single person should follow him. It should be state law if you respect yourself and the football fandom that you have. Football guy _Al. Al, take us to church. Who is your number 2 guy returning from last year's roster? Oh, no, I lost you. Oh, no.
We're good.
That's on me. That's on me.
Here we are. I don't think we could do this list if I wasn't going to talk about Jordan Hall.
Sure.
And I think it starts with some of what Matt Wenzel wrote and spoke to you about, how that first meeting with Jonathan Smith, he had every player write down 3 problematic areas, and Smith was going to review them all personally. And Hall challenged Smith and wrote down 2 problematic areas and then his phone number. Smith called him a day or 2 later, and they sat down and went over what he could improve on. And he could tell that Jonathan Smith had the best interests of the team in his heart. And I know that's really cool to build that relationship, to keep a guy like Jordan Hall, who could be a starting linebacker for a playoff contending Power 5 team. And I know Jordan Hall might have ran into a wall a little bit last year, just given that he wasn't getting much protection from some of the defensive line in front of him. There's a lot going on with a not a very cohesive defensive plan, but he flashed immediately in that Richmond and Washington game. He was the best defender in that Washington game other than name redacted player. So he got his first start in Maryland, week 4, and he eventually played 500 snaps. He had 6 starts, but it was the splash plays that I really liked. He had 10 QB pressures, so he was adept at blitzing. He had 29 defensive stops, and 7.5 of them were TFLs. He had a forced fumble, and he might have struggled against some of the better opponents, the U of M, OSU, PSU, but he still made plays. And I was rewatching the Minnesota game. Some of the big things I noticed were he is able to diagnose and pull the trigger on a play quicker than Holiday and Brule were as a freshman.
Gotcha.
He's able to get downhill, and that's a big difference between 2nd and 8 or 2nd and 4 or 5. And he removed a lot of that. He doesn't have a lot of happy feet where he's thinking and he's just in motion. Wheels are turning too much. He's overwhelmed. He's a glove in coverage. He covers a lot of ground in the back half, and he was more comfortable playing closer to the line of scrimmage, I felt, than Holiday, who can be a little like Zach Thomas and play a little Ole defense on an offensive lineman 7 yards down, where he ends up looking up at clouds and hugging a guy 7 yards downfield. So I like that he was comfortable playing within 3 to 4 yards of the line of scrimmage against an offensive lineman, and he'll need to do better at defending offensive linemen's blocks. And I think he'll clean up some of the missed tackles, but overall the flashes were pretty incredible, and he was more consistent than we could have imagined. And between Jordan Turner playing next to him possibly as that hammerhead enforcer at 6'1", 235, and Wayne Matthews being the will and coverage, I think he'll be unleashed. He will have the freedom to be an impact player, to actually go get the ball and be a catalyst for Joe Rossi's defense. I think he's a huge linchpin for our success. And I'm looking forward to Jordan Hall year 2. I can't believe it's only year 2. We're going to build off of
right. and he's already a fan favorite, of course, once a fan base. One of the biggest storylines in the offseason because he was never formally in the transfer portal, but I have a hunch that he's had some programs in his ear, sticking it out in East Lansing for this season, hopefully the future too, but you never know. Nevertheless, good player coming back. For my third guy, I'm doing all three defense here, which I feel like is almost insane. And what's even more insane on top of that is I'm doing two secondary players off the top of, whatever happened the last few years. But I got to say, when we talk Dylan Tatum, Al, we're talking about a guy that, who knows where he's going to play this year. It seems like free safety by all accounts, but this is a guy that came here as a 4-star recruit, very fluid, very versatile. I know I'm abusing that word today, versatile, but hey, he has experience. 9 games last year, still 545 snaps, led the team in pass breakups with 7. But look, mature guy, seems like he's been here for about 5 years at this point. I mean, this kid has had a career that he could write probably a trilogy of books about, whether it's on or off the field stuff. But man, I got to go Dylan Tatum with my third guy here for your third most important player. And I've got a whole smattering of honorable mentions. Don't think I just forgot names over here. But are you going to do a clean sweep of defense too, Al? Or are you going to take a trip down the offensive side?
No. So to peel back the curtain for the listener, I was also going to do 3 defensive players, and I was in between Tatum and Spencer. And I spoke with you, and you had both of them. I knew we were going to cover them well. And the thing is, we have an offensive coach. We know we can trust what's going on offense. We needed some of these foundational pieces between Thompson and Hall and Spencer and Tatum that were going to make a difference in year 1 in this new defense. So I love that you had both the safeties in there and our cowboy Jalen Thompson. But Tatum, very similar to Spencer, he's been asked to do everything in his first 2 years. And he's played outside corner. And I think however it winds up with also with Nikai Martinez, that Tatum will probably have to do whatever he'll fill the gaps. Fill the gaps. So I ended up going offensively just to change it up a little bit. And I went Brennan Parachek. And I know Brennan Parachek was not healthy in the spring. And Brian Wozniak, the tight end coach, said he's scheduled to be rolling out sometime around May or June. That was back in April. But he said he was one of those guys where football speaks to him. And he was itching to get going, and he's a big, talented kid. And as a freshman, I mean, he's 6'5", he's 255. That's a tight end we're going to take advantage of and it's from the top down. It's Jonathan Smith, it's Lindgren, and Wozniak. He has 3 good coaches who like to utilize tight ends, and we know that Oregon State probably ran 2 tight end. It was like 40 to 50% of the time based on some of the 3 tight end sets. So we are going to need him or a Michael Masunas to fill in with Jack Veiling and eventually be the successor to him. So I think it's big that we kept some of those tight ends in year 2. And I mean, he had the 17-yard catch against Nebraska, the 13 against Minnesota. And he's someone that got, 93 snaps. He got 6 catches. So I'm excited to see what we can use with our tight end 2, which I think is an area that's being slept on or not covered enough. For how important it is to our success next year on offense, because he's also going to have to get his nose dirty and be a prominent blocker, sometimes a lead blocker or an H-back. So whoever comes out between Parachek or Masunas, I'm excited.
I love that because, we just talked about Parachek not too long ago right here on the show because might not be a name that a lot of people know. He has played sparingly. And even to start this year, we all know Jack Veiling, transfer tight end, most touchdown catches in the nation as a tight end last year, this and that. But, man, I love the prospect of Parachek out of high school as a 4-star out of Dexter. Just like you said, he's long, he's fluid. We'll have to get the blocking down. We'll see how strong it is, but this is just one of the classic examples of no block, no rock. That's how Jonathan Smith plays his tight ends, so shouldn't expect anything different. Really quick for my honorable mentions. No, on the defensive side of the ball, I did not forget Chance Rucker's name. I just have more faith in the other secondary guys right now and the prospect of Jalen Thompson as their rush. But also, you know what? Maybe this is like, what's the old saying? Once bitten, twice shy. Well, how about twice bitten, thrice shy? Chris Bogle is still somewhere in there, a top 60 prospect. Maybe a new defensive coordinator can do some things, but we'll check in during the season on that. But the offensive side of the ball, I'm still high on Nate Carter, guys. I'm on Torrey Foster. How could you leave the leading receiver of last year's team off? I'm sorry, I did, unfortunately. And then, well, guys, this wouldn't be a Big Ten show without me mentioning Jonathan Kim, maybe the biggest leg in the Big Ten. And then Ryan Eckley, the punter, is going to have some importance on this year's team too. Second leading average punter in the Big Ten last year. I mean, it may sound like, oh, that joke. Oh, yeah, the kicker and the punter returning. How that's funny. But no, we're going to find out how important they are. Hopefully, if Michigan State actually mixes it up and plays in what they call close games this year, Al. We're going to see how important the kicker and punter truly are, hopefully. So that's where I was just at on honorable mentions.
Give our golden toe guys some love. They don't get enough.
Yes.
We'll have a whole special teams podcast someday.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, yeah, because it's only right for a Big Ten podcast to do. Al, are you ready to talk pass rush here? Because,
sure am.
Look, this is one of the big talking points of the offseason. It might be the storyline of the defense, whether it's like, hey, who's going to play that rush edge position, or bluntly, who's going to rush the quarterback? Because last year, yeah, Michigan State on paper was in the middle for sacks amongst the Big Ten. Like almost half of them came in the first 2 weeks against Central and Richmond. I believe they had 10 in the first 2 weeks. And the rest of the season, it was a lot to be desired. So,
similar trend with the total QB pressures. It was very inflated by those early results against weaker opponents.
They took advantage. They took advantage for sure. So, Al, who is rushing this quarterback this year? Anyone, you think, or just
what's the rush? I think before we even highlight some of the players who are going to get after the quarterback, I think we have to, as a fan base, realize that maybe the toughest thing is going to be when we're only rushing four defensive linemen, and hopefully the coverage is improved. I think we might struggle at times getting to the quarterback. That might be very well be the case, but Joe Rossi is going to make up for it with some of the disguise coverages. He loves his cloud 6, where it's cover 2 on one side, cover 4 on the field side. But he also loves his blitzes, as we talked about before, especially on third down, and his simulated pressures, where he's bringing only 4 guys, but it's not the 4 the offensive line of the quarterback thinks. That's where Jalen Thompson or Chris Bogle at the rush end position will be dropping back into coverage, hopefully zone drop coverage, not as much man-to-man for them. And we're bringing a linebacker like Jordan Hall or Jordan Turner, and we're still bringing 4, but it's not the guys they're thinking about. The offensive line has to communicate. So I want to highlight that we're going to do our best. We're going to throw the kitchen sink. We're going to be a little more creative and outside the box and aggressive than previous defense coordinator on his deployment of blitzes.
Sure. But
we do have a litany of guys on in our defensive line room. Who do you want to start with by highlighting?
I mean, we've already done Chris Bogle, right? I'm sorry. We already done Jalen Thompson, right? But like Chris Bogle, are you a believer? I guess. Do you believe that something could happen here with him?
I was interested that he got down to he's 6'4", 240 now in the spring, and so he is. I didn't know if he'd be playing the strong side defensive end or that rush, but he's playing a rush end, and he's taking on. He's calling Jalen Thompson his little brother, so I'd love for those two to be our impact guys off the edge, especially on third down. That's kind of what I care about most is can we get the hell off the field? And Bogle could be that rush end. And if not, are we getting pressure from Ken Talley, maybe Avery Dunn, or the Anthony Jones, the transfer from Indiana?
Right. Or like, I don't know if like Samaj Bridgman will be there yet. I mean, obviously he didn't play any snaps at all for Michigan last year, but he's like maybe kind of like that rush edge mold of the future. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like, who's going to get this job? Like, is it just as easy as Jalen Thompson? Like, there is some mystery into this as we go into August here in a little bit. So it's fascinating because you got to be a certain build. Like, is Jalen Thompson a little too big at 6'3", 260? Because 260 is, a lot to carry around, because Joe Rossi at Minnesota, traditionally, it was like closer to like the 230-ish. Exactly. Emphasis on the ish range. So I'm trying to give people the answer here, but Al, I got to put my hand up. I am a little in the dark here of who could this possibly be here, this mystical rush edge position. Yeah.
But one thing opposite rush edge, I think we know for sure 2 positions. I think 2 starting positions for are we going to get pass rush? I think nose tackle is going to be Maverick Hansen. So I think that's good. And he's probably not going to be on the field as much on third downs. Hopefully he's not as impactful as a pass rusher. What I like are starting strong defensive end, Quindarius Dunnigan. Now this is a young man who is 6'4", 272. He's definitely not the rush end, right? He's not going to drop back. But on third downs, when Maverick Hansen or some of the interior guys are coming off the field, is Quindarius Dunnigan, is he kicking inside? Is he a guy who's utilizing some of his strength and quickness against guards and collapsing that pocket to allow for better rush lanes for Bogle and for Jalen Thompson? I'm excited to see if we are creative and kick Quindarius Dunnigan inside and even use him as a sledgehammer on some ENT, some D-line games. So that's the one guy I think that could be a focal point in generating pass rush, along with other guys. We need to collapse pocket from the interior, and maybe it is Daquan Dow's. I mean, or your guy Big Worm, or is AVS someone who will be able to, like, what? It just seems to be a mystery there.
I so badly want the Alex Van Sumeren thing to work out, but it's just like 2 big leg injuries that early in his career. I mean, not like, what is it screwing up more? Is it the development? You know, he has no reps in college, so like is or close to no reps. Is that more of a burden on him, or is it the fact that like his knee could explode any given moment? Just the fact that, you know, he has had these 2 big injuries, and I'm sure, you know, he's not up to that 100%. So how close can he get up to like that 4-star billing, that top 300 player billing that we've had? Like, man, obviously you never want to see injuries ever, especially when it's your team. But God, that's just one kid. It's like we never let the jet get off the ground with him. And so I'm not calling it a career for him. Like, I'm legitimately curious as to what we can get out of him. But I don't know. I think it's only right to keep the expectations somewhat low. Not to sound like all negative or anything, but I think that there's some realistic talking points there. It's not like he's had 2 boo-boos. Like, there's some pretty big injuries in his past already here in college. So I so badly want him to work out for AVS, man. So badly. Just want him to work out everywhere, Al.
I want it to work out on early downs so that we get long third downs and we let Joe Rossi cook. But that also will make life easier for Jalen Thompson, Chris Bogle, Ken Talley, Quindarius Dunnigan, Avery Dunn. Let's just make it 3rd and longs, and then the pass rush can get there.
Just get off the field, employ those, what I like to call, and I'm not the only one that calls them this, but like the NASCAR packages, of course. Kind of just like what you talked about, kicking Quindarius Dunnigan, a guy that's like kind of that tweener inside, because I thought he was the star of the spring showcase. Like, I remember seeing him and being like, oh, okay, we're going to be talking him up in this offseason right here. Sure, it's only 30 minutes of live football, but that's not going to stop us whatsoever. But yeah, he had a pretty solid career for Middle Tennessee.
A lot of unimproving guys on this defensive line. So let's just hope 4. I hope 4 emerges, and we have a great 4-man pass rush package on 3rd and long that we can bring on the field.
It's not asking a lot, right? I mean, even if it's former offensive lineman walk on Ben Nelson, you know, like, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty of roster makeup, like, it's just anyone, any 4. And not to be greedy here, stay healthy. We got to be doing. I feel like I do this once every 2 weeks on the show. Crucial. You think so? Have we learned that the last few years around here? Yeah, eventually the injury luck has to swing back to like the positive side for us, right? I feel like I do this once every 2 weeks on the show, but like just on numbers alone, like just luck has to go our way eventually, right? Like,
it has to regress for me.
So I tell myself at the blackjack table whenever I'm in a cold streak, and I've seen how that works too.
And he's still telling himself.
Still telling myself, that's right. Yeah, check out my FanDuel app and that history too. Eventually, these soccer bets have to hit, right? Even though I don't know anything about the sport. Come on. So it's all got to average out here. Eventually, the injury luck has to average out too. Al, speaking of luck, we've been very lucky to have you back on yet again. I know the people love watching you, listening to you, but I guarantee I love it somehow even more than that. This is always a delight having you on. Already looking forward to our next chat. Of course, if you want to come on, you always have the freedom to say no.
Can't wait to see you again soon, buddy.
Dude, this is the best. Thank you so much for helping all the listeners and myself getting through this off season 1 week at a time here, folks. This is the best. Al, anything you want to plug here before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your week?
Fall camp soon. I'll probably post some clips of some of the players we talked about in the Minnesota game last year, just highlighting those things. But also, I mean, not Spartans related, but Lions training camps up soon. I'll be going there for a couple days, and we'll have a lot of my observations as well.
A single tear can come to my eye right now. Like, Spartans and Lions back in our lives. And folks, if you like either or both of those teams, again, it's footballguy_Al on Twitter. He does it all from like 6 a.m. to midnight. It'll just be random pockets of threads of football greatness. So go ahead and follow him. Folks, until next time, we will be back. Until then, love you all. Go great.
Go White.